Ladies and gentlemen, part 2, section 2, down the rabbit hole, EVE Online. Let's see what's cooking. Let's see. It's coming through one ear right now. You hear that?
Over the following months, the more adventurous corporations began to establish themselves in nullsec, and already the diplomatic situations in different regions were developing in distinct ways. These early groups of players, typically no more than a few dozen people, would form the first alliance.
Look at this fit. Look at the passive modules here. And I know it's pixely because this is older footage. Look at this fit. Look at, it's nothing but DPS modules in the lows. It looks like a scram. And maybe those look like the target, the passive targeters, and then just like guns and lasers. This was how the Bealhorn, the Armageddon was back in the day. This is bringing me back. Exactly. Those graphics there. I mean, look at the box of this. It looks like he's targeting a Raven. I don't think they had golems back then. I don't think so. But isn't this, remember back in the day when your fit was like, right, hey, the best defense is the best offense back in the day. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
With one another to stave off competition, typically naming themselves after the region of space that they inhabited. In this early stage of the game, there was no way for players to officially lay claim to territory, but over a decade later, Andrew Groen would resurrect information that had largely been lost by trawling through long-abandoned forum threads and speaking with numerous leaders from the time, and by doing so, he managed to chart early nullsec. To the southeast was the pirate nation of the Curse Alliance, who frequently warred with the rigid and authoritarian Stain Alliance. To the west and the north were the Fountain Alliance, the Coalition of Free Stars, and Venal Alliance, which boasted more democratic systems of governance between their constituent corporations. While a significant—
Is this bringing back like memories for y'all? Like this is pulling, just hearing those things said is pulling out stuff from the back of my brain. It's been over 10 years. You know? Oh my gosh, how the game has changed. And you know what's funny is the map isn't necessarily bigger now. It just has more in it, right? So, oh, nice, Thomas. Oh, you were in both with different characters. Thomas out here playing both sides. Oh my gosh. I wish Captain's Quarters was still a thing, Brian. Exactly. So, down the rabbit hole. So Stomabs, this is a great question. This is a channel called, and I'll totally plug it in the YouTube video too. This is a channel, Frederick Knudsen, 1.2 million subs. Here's the man, and he does deep dive things. This is a 6-hour documentary about EVE Online. It's fantastic. It's awesome. We're gonna watch section 2 of it today.
A contingent of players sought to take and hold territory in nullsec. Most made their home in Empire space. Though maintaining a nullsec presence was lucrative, it was also difficult and time-consuming, and for most, this was a distraction from the more specific activities which drew them to EVE. This also meant that much of the money within the player economy was held in Empire space, and so, even nullsec powers would have to enter this safer territory and trade.
Look at the market. Look at the market. I kind of like that better. Is that just nostalgia talking? Look how angular everything is. Am I crazy? I'm looking at this going like, I don't know. You know, obviously there's better functionality now, but the look and feel of it, I don't know. I like these pictures. I don't know if that's a thing anymore, right? We have like icons that don't like, I like how this looks like, right? There's like buildings here, and this is like a person making a thing, and this is like a market table, and this is like contracts and stuff, the old UI. Yeah. You know, right. I like these icons better than the icons now. They're more, it's clearer, definitely looks better, but would be hard now with the gazillion items to scroll through. That's fair. Yeah, there's way more items now. That's totally fair, you know? I like more clear, like I'm used to the older MMOs, like this takes me back, Crafty. Oh yeah, you know? Super, it really is an amazing documentary. I'm really glad to be reacting to it with y'all, so we can we had great discussions on the last video. So good.
With the players there, though many nullsec dwellers found them tepid. For the industrialists, trading with Empire space was not only efficient, but necessary. While the most valuable materials were in nullsec, the basic materials required for all ships could only be found in Empire space, and so it was impossible to maintain a nullsec presence without some sort of supply line to highsec and lowsec.
Look at
this.
this.
Meant that these two worlds of Eve, while in most ways separate, were fundamentally tied to one another. And while the flow of resources between the two was imperative, the most stark example of this
Fraps. Fraps, bro. Yeah, exactly. Ride check. Fraps. Let's go. Let's go. All we need is Mudvayne song or Slipknot or Disturbed with like 3 FPS going over someone's warrior PvP montage. You know what I'm saying? My man's got fraps.com. Oh, so good, dude. Takes me back, brother.
This interplay was illustrated in the Mercenary corporations.
And eliminated.
Varying widely in terms of background, these mercenaries would take contracts to harangue whatever target was desired, and during this early stage, their prices were often cheap, with the thrill of the fight being a part of the reward. The people or corporation issuing the contracts could also be kept secret at their behest, and in this way...
Back before you had mics, right? Back before you had... I remember... Do y'all remember Xfire? Do y'all remember, like, the precursor to Discord? Xfire. Y'all remember that stuff when I was in college? Oh, goodness. Like, TeamSpeak, Xfire, that was the only way we could talk, but we didn't have recording software like this. So my man had to, like, put on the screen, eject. That's... I'm not making fun of him. That's fantastic. Vent, bro. Oh, my God. Ventrilo. Yep, every alliance. I remember EVE Online used a lot of TeamSpeak and Vent. My WoW guilds used a lot of Xfire and a lot of TeamSpeak. It was like, depending on the game, the culture of it, you had different programs, and now everybody just uses Discord. So interesting. Oh, man, yeah.
Competitors could be weakened or eliminated without any fighting on the part of the buyer. Pirate gangs were eager to loan out their services for interstellar credit.
Bro, it's a Dominix. They're scramming my potato. Look at these big asteroids, chat. Oh my gosh.
But many of them were unaccustomed to attacking targets that fought back, and so a niche began to develop for players who had experience not only trapping vulnerable targets, but engaging in proper...
And you know why the Dominix is there? It's a mining Dominix. It's mining the asteroids. Potatoes. Yes, he's a potato mining other potatoes. And then you got these frigates that looks like a Kestrel and something else, and what looked like a hookbill, but I don't think they had the Navy ships back then. Or a bait dummy. Ooh, yeah, Thomas, could have been bait, for sure.
Fleet-based combat. As the demand increased, various new mercenary groups were beginning to form, often out of ragtag clusters of players who were more familiar with the praxis of combat than theory. But sometimes it was simply enough for a player to be familiar with combat to disrupt the supply lines of more economy-oriented corporations and allow their competitors to surpass them.
Wow.
Such aggression meant that most every corporation needed to be prepared for a fight, and so they began to learn the methods by which to defend themselves, along with hiring their own mercenaries to protect their ships, meaning that anyone paid to disrupt another corporation had to expect pushback. While
See, this is really... we talked about this a lot last time. This is one of the best and most unique things about EVE Online that makes it great, is that the game has a system that encourages this level of gameplay from a user to user standpoint. Instead of the entire game is we're gonna group up and hop into a 40-man raid to go kill Hakar. Like, again, you heard the last video, I made a lot of WoW references. Instead of doing, like, in Guild Wars 1, we would group up to go do Hall of Heroes, which was like a really intense PvE and then PvP activity. Still some of the most fun and most difficult gameplay I've ever played was Guild Wars 1 Hall of Heroes. So incredible. Oh my gosh. That was some serious core memories for me. But still, EVE Online has more interactivity than I think any other MMO. And I've played most of the top MMOs. New World, ESO, WoW. I haven't played the new RuneScape or RuneScape Classic, but I was never big into RuneScape, you know? So 70% pod rate back when you had to ensure your pod. And LP. Oh, yes. EVE play like it's your job. It is possible to do that for sure. It's not something that I want to do though. I want to make sure that, like, whenever I'm playing EVE, I try to make it about it's a video game. There are those though that make it like a job, right? So, and that's there. It's like that with every single game. Light before mining barges looks difficult. Stomabs, it really was. Mining Apocalypse, mining Megathrons, you know, like before Gnosis, before Praxis, before Retrievers, before Ventures. Craziness. So I loved Hall of Heroes. Once did a consecutive 11 defends, I think. Those were, when I tell you the good old days real, whew, that was it. Guild Wars 1. I wonder if Guild Wars 1 is still around. Maybe I could pop in and see if my character still works.
Miners often weren't familiar with the finer points of combat. Many already had the most important equipment necessary to participate: a battleship. During this time, there were no ships dedicated to mining.
Look at it. Look at it. Oh, man. The mining battleship, baby. It's got active armor reps. Now, this is just an example, okay? Holy crap, dude. Yep, cap rechargers, afterburners, and 8 mining lasers in the highs, baby. Oh, that's right, CrossFit. Oh my gosh, this is fantastic, y'all. They're missing the expanded cargo holds in the lows. That right, yes. So good, Thomas. Oh my goodness. This was before racial specific mining ships. So the Bantam and the Osprey were dedicated mining ships with bonuses. I believe this phase is the beginning of Eve. So even before that, right? So incredible. It was actually fun though, especially being able to mine more than just Feldspar. You know, it's funny. Mining battleships is actually technically still a thing for alphas, and we actually have videos coming out about that, so stay tuned, you know.
And so, miners chose the ships with the most available high slots for mining lasers.
Yes, that's why.
A particular favorite was the Apocalypse, which boasted 8 high slots and a large capacitor. All the miners had to do was trade their mining equipment for weapons, and they were ready to defend themselves in a minimal fashion. What had once effectively been paid piracy was more and more becoming obsolete, and in its place was mercenary work. Among these early mercenaries were a few corporations that attracted attention. Unparalleled were the Masters of Ownage, or Mu, who had become infamous after their gate camp in Mara and Pasari that shut down trade in the north.
Do y'all remember Mu? Holy crap. I'm telling you, watching this, stuff that I forgot I remembered, you know? Just like someone went into a filing cabinet in the back of my brain and just going, this one, remember that? Oh, I remember vaguely hearing about that gate camp, I think. Oh my God, it's been so long. Oh, goodness gracious.
For weeks, but there were a few smaller corporations that were beginning to gain a reputation, namely Body Count Inc. This group, led by the charismatic Celine, was one of the first to dedicate all of their corporation's time to handling mercenary contracts, and while they accepted paltry sums to begin, their fees grew as both the demand for mercenaries and the demand for Body Count Inc. increased. But as mercenary corporation...
Body Count Inc. Wow. You know, just all these names from back in the day. So I remember Iway. I remember that, Drizzt. What is that? Y'all, too much going into the filing cabinet up here, chat. We got EVE Online and Guild Wars 1 coming in, right, going into the back servers of my brain right now. You know, goodness gracious. So look at those scorpions. Look at them. They are missing a wing, bro. Look at this.
Fought one another, there was a surprising effect. Since warfare never resulted in the permanent deaths of any of the players, it was possible to fight against particular enemies repeatedly, and as they did, they grew familiar with one another, especially those who could...
Oh my God, look at this fit.
And while they
look at the
accepted
fit on that mega.
To begin, their fees grew as both the demand for mercenaries and the demand for Body Count Inc. increased. But as mercenary corporations fought one another, there was a surprising effect. Since warfare never resulted in the permanent deaths of any of the players, it was possible to fight against particular enemies repeatedly.
Look, that's a Megathron hull, and it looks like he's got large. That's a medium ammo. That's a missile. So he's got large hybrid turrets. That's a medium hybrid turret, and those are missiles. Those are targeters, and that's a DPS module and an afterburner. Wow. Before stacking, holy crap, you had to sit there and press F1 through F7. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness, dude. Seeing the stuff we got now, oh, it gives you perspective, chat. It's, you know, it's good to look back at this stuff Right, the briefcase is a damage control. Exactly. It's really good to look back at this stuff and see how far we've come. It's good to have perspective. It's good to be like, what's the word for when you look back at what stuff was and you have appreciation of where you are now because of how things used to be, you know? So, right, this is why back in the day people used to have a bunch of keyboard macros. So blast from the past, Lanky, yes, or the briefcase damage control, I remember.
And as they did, they grew familiar with one another, especially those who could fight exceptionally well. Such exemplary pilots would sometimes impress their enemies so much that they would be invited to join those they had fought. And so, a core tenet of EVE Online was discovered. In the words of Celine, quote, "The best way to recruit people is by shooting them." And so, the best...
Yo, Celine is Seraph from The Matrix. You do not truly know someone until you fight them. You know, I love that line. And that makes complete sense to me. That like, you fight somebody, you keep fighting the same names over and over again in a game like EVE Online, and then you're like, hey, how do we talk to that pilot, that Capsuleer, and get him to come to our side? How do we get them to fight for us? Because we keep going neck and neck with these nerds. How do we make those our nerds? You know, how do we do that? That's so good, dude.
Pilots in the game began to conglomerate into groups and charge hefty prices for their services, prices that corporations were more than willing to pay in this key moment in the history of the economy of EVE. During the production of the game, one of the envisioned roles in EVE Online was that of a trader, traveling from location to location in order to find places to buy goods low and sell high based on an asymmetry of information. Players would only be able to see the goods on offer in their current...
I love the like 3 polygons that everything is made of. Again, you get that good perspective of how stuff's going, you know? So it really is interesting seeing it. So how to get them to the dark side of the force, that's right, Real Talks. That's literally correct, you know what I'm saying? Amazing.
Region, and then they would have to travel to the station where the good was being sold. But as players traded with one another and the player economy began to establish itself, the need for a centralized hub of commerce grew.
Did you see how long they could put up an item for? You could put up an item for a year. The maximum you could put up stuff now is for 3 months. You could put up an item for a year. Wow. Holy crap, dude. Why? I can see why they took that down. Otherwise, the market just gets flooded with item after item after item. I'm sure that puts strain on their servers even, you know? When did they change that, I wonder? When did they make it so you could only put something up for 3 months? Light before Jitta. Exactly. Light before Jitta. Yes, exactly.
True. In order to maximize visibility and convenience, many chose one particular system from which to base their trade. Yulai. Yulai was a natural choice, given that it was a high-security system with the maximum value of 1, meaning that trading there was remarkably safe. But more importantly, it resided at the precise center of Empire space, making a trip to Yulai a reasonable distance, no matter where a player was. Soon, all manner of...
Yulai is still 1-0, or has that been changed? I almost guarantee it's been changed by this point. I don't remember anymore, you know?
Of players were traveling to Yulai in order to buy and sell goods, and almost anything could be purchased there. This posed a problem. So many players in a system taxed the game servers heavily, and if too many people began to use
NPCs still keep those 365-day orders. That makes sense. That makes sense. Still at 1? I wonder why it's not used as much anymore. Why Jitta and the other Empire hubs are used more. Like, what shifted in the meta so much that now we have 4 trade hubs and really 1. Jitta is considered to be the main trade hub throughout all of New Eden, with right now there's 4 hubs, 1 in each Empire's space. You know, Triggs broke the routes to Yulai. Oh my god, they changed the jump gates. Maybe locations closer to other things, right? Jitta became a hub due to the low sec travel from a particular large alliance. Maybe you could log in to find out. Stomabs, if only I could. You know, I think I can. I could tell you my launcher is now downloaded, and I think I've resolved my stuff, but you know, my launcher, chat, goodness gracious. If the devs are watching, thank you for helping me to log in. Sheesh, you know, goodness gracious. Jitta or Jita? Yes, I don't, you know, whatever. I just call it Jitta, you know. Is it GIF or JIF?
Yulai as a trade hub, then the servers would be unable to accommodate them. But soon, an even greater existential threat to the game would appear.
These are, by the way, you can't see it because my body's right here. The source of these videos are Celine. So the person that he's been citing, the owner of that old big corp, is of the ganking corp, of the Mercenary Corp, is giving a lot of these videos. So 07s, Celine, if you ever see this, 07s, you have really helped to preserve history here. Like, this is really important stuff. Yeah, thank you, chat. 07s, for sure. This is really awesome stuff. Thank you, Selena. Thank you. Down the rabbit hole. This is incredible, dude. Seriously, this is just fantastic. So, Jita, if you're from the south. Jitta, if you're from the north. That's it. Exactly. Oh my gosh. Remember when you could not warp to 0? How did we do anything? You know, incredible. So, oh my gosh. You keep all your stuff in ships. See, Inferno, you know, and whenever someone does like a time travel question to me, I always tell them, I like my life now. I don't want to time travel. I'm really happy now. I don't want to lose what I've worked for, you know. It's an interesting thinking, though. Interesting thinking. So I do too, Nihilus. I'd love to. I got to read some Eve lore. You know what I'm saying? So chat, we are going into section 3. That was pretty short. Let's do more. This was a lot of fun. Let's do one more, and we're gonna have the VODs here. Yeah. Let's keep us going. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sad music, chat.
Toward the end of 2003, the deal that CCP had made with its publishing companies was concluding, but Simon & Schuster had no intention of renewing the deal, and so they reached an agreement that would return the publishing rights to the game developer. And while they had no infrastructure or connections to print physical copies of the game, CCP had another plan. On December 3rd, 2003, CCP made an announcement on their website. Quote, CCP, the developer of the highly acclaimed MMORPG title EVE Online, announced today that it has regained the publishing rights for the title worldwide and will start...
A great question in chat. A great question in chat. Can I use the voice effect on his voice? So no, because the voice effect only works on this mic, right? And I can't like modulate that. I could if I like play with my sound channels, but you know, I can't do that, at least right now. This is interesting. So what led CCP Games to letting EVE Online be downloadable is that they couldn't renew their old distributor. And you think about this, back in the day, people wanted to own the physical copy of the game. We've talked about like, you know, like whenever I would buy Command and Conquer games, I would like want to, on the way home, like, you know, right? Like,
Mom, can I go buy Yuri's Revenge?
Like, is that a good game?
Yeah, it's super fun. I love it. Super fun.
And then on the way home, I would be like reading all the booklets, you know, that like, you know, the smell of those, you know? Oh, so, you know, the smell of those old books. I don't know what it was, but like the smell of them, I was like, oh, it smelled exciting, you know? I'm not sitting there like, oh, you know, don't be weird, chat, but like you'd open up, you'd read the book and you would get the smell of like the new game smell. It's like a new car smell, except for a video game, you know? But this was a big deal that now, hey, we're not gonna do it anymore and we're gonna only let it be downloadable. So, and I like how Hilmar says this, our player base has been growing steadily since the launch of EVE Online in May. Our game servers are in good shape and we're technically ready for a much faster growth now. So from a distribution standpoint, now anybody with a computer could get it. But you have to remember, back in the day, that was not part of like the gaming industry. You know, that was not a part of like, this was weird and bad, you know, like oh, I download the game, like
download the game. I want to own my game. You know,
this was weird. So this was interesting that they were stepping out like this. And again, shows, I've said this many, many times, that Hilmar and the admins and the leadership of CCP Games, they've been ahead of their time every time. They started doing this before a lot of other gaming companies thought this was even an option, you know, so pressing disc can be expensive. Exactly. Especially if the stock does not move. Yes, man, the fresh book smell and the excitement was amazing. Oh, totally. Gods, yes, reading the unit descriptions and C&C manual on the ride home. Correct. Welcome in, Crafty. It's good to see you. Yes, Direct to Drive was just coming out. Wow. Well, that was like 5 years later. There it is. Exactly. I still have the box, Scipio. Yes, I have the, somewhere in like the storage room is like, you know, with the old school stuff. Amazing.
Start distributing it as a direct download from the internet. We are very pleased to be in a position where we can contribute equally to both development and publishing, says Ivor Christiansen, CEO of CCP. We have reached an agreement with Simon & Schuster Incorporated and Vivendi International regarding Canada and North America, as well as with Crucial Limited for Europe. We expect the downloadable version to increase global sales sharply. Our player base has been growing steadily since the launch of EVE Online in May. Our game servers are in good shape.
And you got to think about like making a downloadable version. It's a pure supply and demand thing. It makes the barrier of entry closer to you instead of farther from you, right? Because if you are having to go to a store to go buy a disc and then drive back, let's say the closest GameStop to you or Walmart or Target, wherever it was like 15 to 20 minute drive. I think that's fair, like on average, maybe even 30 minutes. So it'll take you an hour to go get something versus you're sitting in your room. You know, one of my buddies told me about EVE Online. I'm going to go click a button and now it's on my computer. This is something in marketing that I work with a lot is called the path to conversion. And you want to make the path to conversion for your people super small, super easy to be able to do this.
Faster growth now, says Hilmar V. Pedersen, CCP's Chief Technical Officer. The player community is a great source of new ideas for the future development of the game. EVE Online is an evolving, living game, and we can't wait to see how the players will react to some of the new stuff we will be adding in the future. End quote. But this optimism was undermined by the problems that Yulai now presented. As mentioned previously, the game's server architecture...
I've said this before, I can't get over this fit, dude. Okay, we got an Armageddon fighting the old Scorpion, right? The old rattlesnake, that's the big one, fit. It literally is like missing a wing. And we got the old Raven, and I'm cracking up at this fit. We were saying it earlier. Just... was that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 DPS mods in the lows. My man is cooking.
Architecture was designed so that each region in the game world was managed by a different server. However, the newest processors at the time proved to be suboptimal for CCP's purposes, and so...
I like how the new processors of the time weren't good enough, and it's just Intel. Like, poor Intel, dude.
Even the latest CPU technologies wouldn't help to bolster their servers for the influx of players, specifically the growing population in Yulai. Theoretically, this could have been solved by changing the regions that each server managed and perhaps utilizing a specific server for Yulai, but with the volume of players that Yulai threatened to host, not even a dedicated server for that star system would be enough. What's more, players were beginning to discover exploits that threatened their faith in the game to function as it was intended. On March 3rd, 2004...
the servers couldn't even handle one star system, the main trade hubs of the entire universe's server, load. I wonder if that's one of the reasons why. Do you think that CCP made changes to the game subtly to make it so there wasn't one trade hub? Now there's 4 trade hubs, one for each empire, to help reduce server load? I could see that. I could see that being a thing,
A corporation named Zombies Inc. descended upon Yulai with a single Apocalypse battleship and a bevy of dedicated logistics ships, parking themselves near a Stargate, approximately where players would arrive when entering the system or approaching the gate to leave. The Apocalypse was equipped with a special kind of weapon, a smart bomb. When activated, this niche weapon would deal massive damage to everything within a certain distance of the user, whether ally or enemy. As soon as ships appeared, the pilot of the Apocalypse activated his smart bombs, and his targets were instantly destroyed. As Yulai was a system with a 1.0 security rating, Concord appeared almost instantly in order to destroy the offending player.
Are you telling me that the Logi then could out-heal Concord? Are you telling me that the Logi, it looks like frigates or cruisers, whatever, could out-heal Concord? So we've got a maximum in the highs smart bombing APOC, and the Marshals come in, they could tank Concord.
But as soon as they did, the logistics ships began repairing it from just outside of the radius of the smart bombs as Concord ships approached and were destroyed in the successive blasts. Now, not only were hapless players being destroyed in Yulai, but so were the game's NPC police. While Concord attacked the Apocalypse...
They killed Concord too, bro! That's nuts! Oh, this is why Concord just deletes things now. Literally, like, Concord does... Do they do Doomsday level DPS? Do they do, like, Titan level freaking DPS? They were ruthless. This is wild. This is wild.
Battleship, the logistics ships were entirely ignored. This was due to an oversight that Zombies Inc. had discovered. While attacking another ship in Empire space would grant the player a wanted status and summon the police, repairing another ship would not, even if the player receiving the repairs was wanted.
That makes sense. That it's totally an oversight. Definitely needs to also flag the Logi ship 1000%. Makes sense. Well, right, and they got a ban for this. I'm sure they did. Once this was discovered and seen, I'm sure it was like patched nearly immediately, most likely. Goodness.
They estimated the damage output of Concord's ships. Zombies Inc. had brought just enough logistics capability to outpace the damage that Concord could deal, making the apocalypse practically invulnerable. Any players attempting to intervene by attacking the logistics ships would, in turn, be destroyed by Concord, since by the game's definition.
Oh my god, that's the worst. Can you imagine? Because the Logi ships back then were not getting flagged. They weren't getting suspect or whatever criminal. So then other ships would come in and be like, oh, attack the Logi ships. And the Concord was showing up and killing the people trying, rightfully so, to kill the Logi ships. Oh my god, can you imagine? Can you imagine? That is wild. Would crash the servers, that's nuts. Politely asked to stop, didn't, so got banned. That makes sense. The fact these guys got banned for this is a joke. I don't think it's a joke. I don't think it's a joke. I think that, see, and kind of what Nihilus was saying, if we don't know everything that happened, if we don't know if CCP tried to talk to them, we don't know if what the back-end channels were. Remember, this was like 15 years ago, or we have no idea. I think this could be considered a gaming exploit. And while some people would argue the other way, it comes back to this. When you have a video game, there's a certain way that the developers envision the game played, and if players break that, the level that they break it is going to determine a ban. So I always do the WoW stuff. There was a guy in WoW in Wrath of the Lich King that when he got sent a GM item, that when you right-clicked, it was a shirt you could wear, and if you right-clicked the shirt, all enemies within like a radius would die. So he took his buddies into a raid into Ulduar, and he got he got a bunch of world-first achievements because he was just wiping raid bosses with a couple clicks. This was a ban. Now, some people argued, and the whole freaking guild got banned because they all benefited from this. People said, well, why was that a ban? The GMs gave him the item by mistake. It's the GM's fault. But they chose to use it, right? They chose to do it. Correct. The spirit of the law versus the letter of the law. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. Like, is this kind of funny? Sure. But then you get banned because, I mean, for how long was this going on before, how many days before CCP found out about it, did it? So I'm not saying that we're not arguing morality here. What we're arguing is it's CCP's game, and if they deem that something is not in the spirit of which they want it to be, they can make that call. Like, we as players can appeal stuff and talk about it, but ultimately it's the developer's decision what is and isn't a ban. We can talk about that. This kind of stuff where it is something that is hindering player experiences and is unfun for all sides except for the people doing the smart bombing and healing, like then it's like, I can understand it. So,
Definition, they were innocent, and so they were able to continue their slaughter.
Not a perfect thing, but it makes sense to me. So,
in Yulai for an unrecorded period of time. Victims of Zombies Inc. went to the forums to complain, and soon, even those who hadn't encountered the small fleet were complaining to the developers that trade through Yulai, and therefore in much of the game, had been brought to a halt due to an exploit. CCP's game masters contact.
And that's my point right there, is that they're remembered years later, for sure. You can say, like, worth it, we were remembered. But see, that's lame to me. And I'm not saying what you're saying is lame, Griff. I'm saying that I don't want to ever do something that makes me infamous, right? Because that's not worth it, It's not worth it for me to be, like, remembered as, oh, yeah, I was the guy that brought trade in a video game to a halt. I got other things going on, I got grass to touch. I guess it's too much for me. Is it something interesting? Yeah. But is it something that I think is brag-worthy 20 years later? It's something that we can talk about in the history thing, but it's not something that I consider to be worth, like, I'm not going to do things now that are going to be that bad just for the sake of being remembered. Like, I've talked about silly memes that I want to do for content, just to be silly and just to kind of like have fun when we're like streaming. But I don't want to bring the trade of an entire video game to a halt, because, you know, it's like, what do you want to be remembered for, right? Do you want to have a great time with your buddies, or do you want to like have something like this? Does that make sense? You know, it makes sense that we're talking about it now, but there it is. If they stopped when asked would have been a cool exploit, well, sure, there it is. The 4 hubs are Amar, Jeddah, Renz, and Dodixie. Yeah, exactly. Some secondary ones. Correct. The other thing is the logistics and the amount of stuff the ship's reloaded that is programmed. Accounting the server space limitations to reach the max of something that is limited for server issues is a total exploit. So the reason why this was an exploit is because other people are... the system isn't working as intended. Just because players found a loophole doesn't mean that they shouldn't get banned for it. And I don't think you're arguing one way or the other, you know. So great, Chrissy, excellent, fantastic. If I am in Eve and I go kill a ship in high sec, Concord comes and kills me, right? If that person goes and kills a ship in high sec and Concord comes and they don't die, and the people that are trying to kill the Logi ships, the Concord kills those people, there's now 2 sets of rules in the game. That's why this is a bannable offense. That's why it's an exploit. That's why we have to use the E word, you know, exploit, right? It's like a scary word, because it is, because there's 2 sets of rules. That's kind of my line when we're talking about is it a bannable thing? Is it an exploit? That's what I'm saying. So I'll always remember you for that double T3 cruiser kill and coming out alive. Thank you very much, Lanky. That was a fun time, but see, no exploits there. It was just a good fight, you know, a good fight to Wingspan. It was just a great time. So people just want to be remembered, period. And see, that's kind of the problem, right? Is legacy doesn't matter. There's no such thing as legacy, right? Like, we talk about stuff for 15 years ago, but another 15, no one's going to remember that. And another 15, no one's going to remember anything. Like that. They people say this, that the richest place in the world is the graveyard for all of the hopes and dreams that like never got fulfilled. That's why, chat, we preach wellness on this channel. You know, like, we talk a lot about how we're getting real philosophical. I love it. Like, the best thing you can do is live your best day today. Like, the good old days are now, today. We could talk about Guild Wars 1 and we could talk about like the past Eve stuff, and it's good to remember, but it says in Ecclesiastes that like, if you think back in your past and think those days are better, it is not from wisdom that you do this, right? This is like a proverb. It's not a sin to like be nostalgic, right? But it doesn't come from a wise place. Does that make sense? Like, it's not a good way to spend your time. So the Blood Plague in WoW, very similar. I was just thinking about that, ride check. Yes, where it brought everything to a standstill. Was it interesting? Sure. Was it an exploit? 100%. You know, it brought the game to like a standstill. I will remember his response to the Gandalf build and the tourney he did commentary on. But see, yes, that's good. We had a good time as a community. Those are good memories. This is like bad memories, you know, and like that's what I'm saying. We want to have we make good memories here. We don't make content here, chat. We make memories.
Contacted the perpetrators and instructed them to cease. Zombies Inc. declined. A post made to the...
See, and there it is. CCP instructed them to cease. The guilds, the Corp, Zombies Inc. declined. There it is.
Forum by the Game Masters describes the incident in full. Quote, as a lot of you are aware, a certain Corp willingly exploited a fault in the game mechanics and managed to kill over 100 people in the supposedly secure Yulai system last night. We have decreed that those who were the recipients of this heinous crime will be fully reimbursed for their loss. If you are one of those who lost your belongings and still haven't petitioned us, please do so and we will see to it that your possessions are returned to you. The exploiters have received a ban for their efforts, and anyone thinking of following their example should be aware that the same fate awaits them.
And there it is, you know, and this again, the GMs of CCP games, they haven't gotten it right every time, but this is one of those times when they got it right, and they more often than not get it right, in my opinion. Okay, this is really good. Not only did they ban the people that were doing this exploit, and it is an exploit, they also gave the items back to the people that lost their stuff. This is correct. This is correct, because if you're a trader going through low sec and you get potted by somebody smart bombing you mid-warp, that is a game mechanic in low sec. Makes sense. Or in null sec. Even in high sec, you'll find smart bombers, but Concord then comes and blows up their ship. So that's one of the reasons why when I'm traveling with my blockade runner and I'm going to Jeddah, I don't go from gate to gate when I go into the known systems that I know people are going to do something stupid. I go from gate to safe to gate. That way, like the smart bombers, I dodge the smart bombers, right? When it happened to me, I promised never again, and it's been many years since that's happened, and it'll inevitably happen on stream again, just because that's how that goes. But point is, like, I can play around that. No one can play around this because Concord doesn't kill them. That's why it's an exploit. So, you know, the reason I don't think, let me scroll up actually. The reason I don't think they should have been banned is because all CCP had to do is stop them and write some code and run a SIP pipeline. The reason I don't think they should have been banned is all CCP had to do is stop them is write some code. Nah, see, I don't agree with that because just because it's stoppable by CCP putting a patch in doesn't mean that there weren't people affected. Because again, it's about the spirit of the law, not just what the law says, right? In real life, if the law do not steal stops you from stealing and that's it, that doesn't say something good about like us as people, right? We should not want to steal because it is wrong, not because the law says it's wrong. Does that make sense? Because like seeing someone else's belongings and taking it would inflict harm on someone else. We don't want to not steal because I would steal and then I'll go to jail. You know, it's about the spirit of it. And this is kind of what I'm saying is this is really good conversation. Y'all are really doing it today. You know, does that make sense? I wonder how much different things would have gone if they'd accepted CCP's offer and actually stopped the exploit. If they said, hey, good time, we will stop, I guarantee you CCP would have probably still given the people back the stuff and not banned them. They probably could have avoided a ban and they would have reimbursed the people. So would CCP still have done the same things? I don't know, maybe. You know, we can argue both sides. I think it's 50-50, honestly. That would be so horrible to get caught up in the moment and then get a 90 mil SP2 banned. There it is. There it is. But I hear you, Gen X. But is it, you have to sit back and go, this is why, again, we have to as gamers, we have to understand that we are not entitled to our accounts. We are playing a video game, and the goal of the video game is for the enjoyment of the community. So if you are engaging in something that the rules are disproportionately in your favor for that time, and it's causing negative stuff, and CCP has reached out to you saying stop this, and you persist, it's not like they gave them no shots, right? Like they said, hey, stop this, and then they got banned. So, correct? Ban them. Get them out of here. So, totally. They were asked to stop. Exactly correct. So, totally. Writing code takes time. During that time, many people would simply quit the game. That's another great point, Nihilist Mike, is that this patch, you know, they would have patched stuff, but then people would have been quitting. I would have quit. You kidding me? I lost all my stuff in Concord, and I found out, oh, they didn't even die? What the heck? I'm not playing this dumb game. This impacts the whole game. Totally. If the game allows it, it should be allowed. EVE is known to be brutal. CCP should stick to that. See, again, it's about the spirit of it, okay? Because the rules are different from you to me in this case. If I'm the one doing smart bombing in HiSec and Concord can't kill me, the rules are different from you to me. Well, then you can argue, just keep doing that. You can do it then. But then people are still leaving the game and negatively impacts the game. This is a conversation as old as time, and it's really, really good. I support CCP's position here, especially since they went to the Corp and said, hey, stop this. And then when they said no, then they banned them. I think that's the right way to do it. So they found a way around it in the coming years with Burn Jeddah, and then other action was taken. You know, there it is. CCP wasn't a big company back then. Devoting dev programming resource cost the company money, time to fix the patch. So banning people also made sense. That makes sense too. Correct. We have to think about this from whenever something like this happens, you have to really come at it from what is the totality of human experience? We have a lot of different parties here. We have the players that were impacted and probably quit. We have the players that are doing the exploit. We have the developers at CCP that are handling and trying to figure out what went on. They're checking logs. We have the QAers going what happened. We have the coders. We have the admins of CCP that are dealing with all this, trying to see what's going on. We have the community managers that are reading the posts and seeing these people are frustrated because there's different rules happening, right? Everything was negative from top to bottom about this. And then they said, hey, stop doing this. and then they banned them. So that's what I'm saying. From top to bottom, this was a negative thing. So of course they need to test it for sure. Yeah, people are people. Laws are decided by people. Each person knows what is right and wrong without having to be told. See, I disagree with that real Driz. This is, and we're not. I don't want to get into like religion here a lot, but like people are I believe that people have an inherent bad nature, and that even though we know what's right and wrong, sure, people tend to do what's wrong because it's easier. Like what's the line? You have to choose between what is right and what is easy. I think that's Dumbledore, for God's sake. So these are all great points. Apart from the fact Eve is sold as a sandbox where you can do what you want. Do what you want as the vision of the devs. Like, you're never going to be able to do everything in a video game because that wouldn't be not just legally possible, but like morally possible. Like at the end of the day, the Eve is still the vision of CCP games. And even if the vision is do what you want, a sandbox still has an edge where it becomes your yard or the street, right? Just because EVE Online is still a sandbox doesn't mean there isn't an end to that sandbox. There's definitely an end. It's way bigger end than World of Warcraft or New World or ESO, but it's still yes, it's a sandbox, but sandboxes are still in a box, It's all great points, y'all. All great points. If they stopped when asked and they were the ones that found and exposed the exploit, that would have been cooler. I agree, Lil Griff. Totally agree. If they hey, yeah, we found this exploit. That's us, Hey, no harm, no foul. Makes sense. We'll stop doing this. How they bowed out with grace instead of getting their accounts banned, And now they're like, how dare that bitterness, how dare they? Like, that would have been much better if they bowed out with grace. Yes, that's us. We're the ones. Thank you very much. We'll like see you next week. Exactly. So that was a fair ban. IMO. Totally agree. Too brutal does not work in business. Well, fair it is. You know what I'm saying? I'll see you, Sucrus. Yeah. Modern exploits are allowed until they are deemed an exploit and treated as such. Well, sure. Because the thing about exploits is we don't know something exists until it exists, right? And until it's widely used. Because the most recent exploit that I can think of was the one that actually Chlorokin from No Man's Sky showed about on his, I think it was Chlorokin on his channel, that showed how you can actually seed your ships and you can use some clever uses of the Abyss and the downtime timer to get ships that aren't supposed to be in certain wormholes. Like you could get, I think it was a heavy assault cruiser, could go into like a shattered system, something like that. Now it's an exploit. You're not allowed to do it. And if somebody is seen doing it, they will be banned. That's it. So game mechanics need to be inherently balanced in such a way that they can be understood and applied to all players equally. Yes. As soon as it is not equal and not widely understood, it needs to be changed. There it is. Needle onto the head. Exactly. So absolutely fantastic. It's just a good point, y'all. And this is a great conversation. I do want to keep watching, y'all. My point is they deserved the ban because they did not stop when asked. That's it. The developers of a game are going, hey, this is bad, stop it. And they say, we're going to keep doing it. Then they get banned. Makes sense to me. That's it. So,
The GM team. End quote. While players were in general glad to have the Yulai system cleared, this set a new precedent. With pompous rhetoric, the game masters declared that they would not allow players to bend the rules farther than CCP dictated, but how much was too much was left unspecified. In this case, a rule was codified and enforced as an event was taking place, namely, the players were not allowed to survive indefinitely against Concord in high security space. And
that makes sense to me too. That makes sense to rule. That totally makes sense. It's CCP's game. They set the rules, period. Yeah. Right. It's like, it's a video game. It's a video game. It's kind of like, let's bring it down to like way less complicated rules. If we are playing Monopoly, right? And everybody's playing the rules except as understood, except for one person that thinks a rule is in a certain way, and they use that thinking to get one over on everybody else. That becomes unfun for everybody, and what's going to happen? I don't want to play Monopoly with you anymore. I'll play Monopoly with maybe my friends, but not with that person. So That's what I'm saying. So, oh, we're not going to watch the whole thing today. No, we're going to watch we're going to get to the end of the section and then call it. I think I could sign into Eve. So, so it's a really good point, y'all, that at the end of the day, we're talking about a video game, and the point of a video game is enjoyment for all. And just because you get ganked in that moment doesn't mean that person should be banned, because you're playing by the same rules. If you get killed in high sec and the person has 0 consequences from the in-game systems, the rules are now different from you to them. That's it. So,
anything that allowed them to do so would be considered an exploit, and therefore a bannable offense. However necessary it may have been, and however popular the decision may have been with players, it established the company in an adversarial role to many of its players, especially the ones most interested in experimentation.
And that makes sense to me. I understand the thinking there, that now CCP has put their foot in the sand, dare I say, and made their line in the sand, in the sandbox, like, hey, you're not going to go against our rules. But I also think we got to give CCP Games some credit here, that the sandbox that they have is one of the widest, like we were talking about, of any MMO. And to say, hey guys, you got to follow our rules here, or else go have fun. I can understand how that sounds very aggressive and very whatever, but as a player back in the day that was playing pretty casually, thank you CCP Games, because the people that find exploits and use them to get one over on other players, which is exactly what happened here, those players create unfun for everybody else but themselves. And that's not going to help the game as a whole. Trade in the major trade hub came to a standstill because of the actions of a few. Many people probably quit the game because of this. That's unfun for the wider people. And that means that it shouldn't happen, because it's a video game. The point is enjoyment with your buddies. Yes, there's going to be struggle. Yes, there's going to be ganking. Yes, there's going to be PvP corps that come at you and take out your station. But you can play around it. You can hire other corps. You can move to a different area. There's ways you can play around it. You can't play around unkillable smart bombers. That's it. So, so that's another point, Fuzzra. You'll get more copycats. Totally correct.
Though trade could once again travel through Yulai, this did not lead to the rise of any powerful high-sec corporations due to a particular mechanic. While players were safe from wanton attacks from other players in high-sec space, and players in low-sec space were risking their lives by attacking other players, there was a way for players to attack one another safely, even while Concord was present.
I love seeing that old UI, it just brings me back.
War declaration. By paying a fee every week, a corporation could declare war against another and be granted the right to attack any of their ships on site, often referred to as bribing the police. This meant that, whenever a high-sec corporation became powerful enough, other corporations would band together to check it and prevent it from becoming too powerful.
Now see, is this the precursor to war decking? I think so.
And affecting a monopoly. Even so, there were enough individuals and small corporations trading out of Yulai that the servers began to lag. This was not a difficult threshold to reach. Despite boasting about high potential player counts, EVE Online required less than 100 players to be present in the system before problems began to manifest.
Less than 100 in one system? Ugh, my God.
But as Crowd Control Productions was contending with Yulai, the initial powers of nullsec were beginning to fracture, and soon, divisions would spark conflict that would push their server infrastructure to its limits.
Wow. Well, chat, that's the end of Section 4. We are going to watch more down the rabbit hole on stream, and we're going to feature more of these guides. So subscribe right here if that's what you want, and see all the rabbit hole stuff that we're reacting to. This incredible documentary. Really good discussions today, y'all. We got that playlist right here for you. Thanks very much, y'all. We'll see you soon.